Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Mohammed Layiq Sediqi, the father of Holophase. Part 5: The Island and the Sea, the Law of Coherent Survival. We stand at the threshold of Episode 10, the workshop where we learn to speak and program the universe. But before we take a single step inside, before we touch a single tool of measurement or control, we must become absolutely fluent in one law. This law is not just a principle. It is the foundation upon which every safe, stable, and meaningful act of engineering will be built. It resolves the deepest paradox of our existence and defines the very nature of power in a holophase universe. The paradox is this: we live under two seemingly contradictory mandates. The first is the second law of thermodynamics. In any closed system, the total entropy, a measure of disorder, randomness, and mixed-upness, always increases. The universe has an arrow, and it points toward dispersion. Heat spreads out, structures decay, patterns dissolve. The second mandate is the observed fact of order. We are surrounded by, and are made of, islands of breathtaking, persistent pattern. Atoms are ordered, crystals are ordered, cells are ordered. Hurricanes are ordered vortices. Brains are ordered networks. Civilizations are ordered cooperation. The universe is not a uniform fog. It is a tapestry of coherent structures. Conventional wisdom often frames this as a war: order versus entropy, life against decay, consciousness rebelling against the cold void. This is a compelling story, but it is scientifically incomplete and philosophically dangerous. It leads to the mindset that power means imposing your will against the grain of the universe, a recipe for catastrophic engineering and existential hubris. The true resolution, the one that forms the bedrock of everything we will do, is more beautiful, more rigorous, and ultimately more humbling. The universe does not defeat entropy. The universe channels entropy, and the primary channel through which entropy flows is coherence. Coherence is not the opposite of entropy. Coherence is the shape that entropy production often prefers. Order does not appear despite the second law. It frequently emerges because of it, as the most efficient, stable pathway for gradients to dissipate and for disorder to increase. Hold this core image in your mind. It is the lens through which all of Episode 10 will make sense. Entropy is the eternal, featureless sea. Coherence is a temporary, resilient island. Resonance is the geological force that builds the island from the sea's own materials. Dissonance is the relentless tide that erodes what cannot hold its shape. The sea is always there. It is the background tendency toward equilibrium, the final destination of all motion. The island is not separate from the sea. It is made of the same water and sand. Its miracle is not its substance, but its relationship, the specific arrangement that allows it to persist, for a time, against the pull of the waves. Let us now translate this from metaphor to precise, operational physics in the language we are learning. Numero, the Holophase dictionary: coherence, resonance, dissonance, entropy. Remember our ontology. Reality is a single continuous field, phi, the holophase. We never measure phi itself at some absolute zero. We measure relationships in phi, its derivatives. The first derivatives give us omega, the temporal cadence, and k, the spatial pattern. A thing, a particle, a wave, a vortex, is a stable pattern where these derivatives hold together in a self-consistent relationship across some window of space and time. Coherence is the measure of how stable and well-defined those phase relationships are within your measurement window. High coherence. Omega and k are sharp, well-defined values with small error bars. The pattern is predictable and readable. You can write a sentence about it: a plane wave traveling northeast at 10 Hz. This is a coherent packet. Low coherence Decoherence. The phase is scrambled. Your estimates of omega and k become noisy, then meaningless. The pattern is dissolving into randomness. It is no longer a single thing you can describe. What destroys coherence? Dissonance. Dissonance is destructive interference, when the phases of different components of the field are misaligned such that they cancel rather than reinforce. Peak meets trough. Orderly motion fragments into disordered, conflicting motions. And what is the result of that cancellation? The energy of the once coherent pattern does not vanish. It is redistributed, scattered into countless microscopic, uncoordinated degrees of freedom. Molecular vibrations, thermal jostling, random noise. This scattering is the local increase of entropy. So, in holophase terms, a stable pattern exists only within a window of sufficient coherence. Coherence is built and maintained by constructive resonance, aligned phases reinforcing each other. Coherence is destroyed by dissonance, misaligned phases canceling each other. The destruction of coherence is the process by which entropy claims and randomizes the pattern's energy. Now, the pivotal question. Why would a universe whose micromechanics constantly create dissonance ever produce large, sustained, coherent structures? The answer lies in constraints and feedback loops. In a word, resonance. Resonance, the universe's efficiency engine. Consider a child on a swing. A random push accomplishes little, but a small push delivered exactly in time with the swing's natural rhythm, aligned with its phase, makes it soar. The swing's fixed path, a constraint, and its periodic return, a feedback loop, create a resonant system. The aligned input is amplified. The child learns to cooperate with the swing's own nature to achieve a coherent, high-amplitude motion. This is not magic. It is efficiency. The energy input of a well-timed push is less than the energy required to lift the child to that height directly. Resonance is an algorithm for finding and amplifying the most efficient, stable modes of a system. Now imagine the child pushes at the wrong time. The swing jolts, wobbles, and loses its graceful arc. The organized kinetic energy degrades into messy vibrations in the ropes and heat in the joints. Dissonance has entered the loop. The coherent motion collapses and its energy is dissipated. Entropy increases. This template is universal. A laser. Not just bright light, but light where electromagnetic waves are forced into perfect phase alignment within an optical cavity, a constraint. Aligned waves resonate, stimulating more aligned emission. The coherent beam is born. The energy comes from pumping the medium, and the inevitable waste heat, entropy, is dumped into the environment. A crystal forms as cooling atoms have time to find the lattice arrangement where their mutual interactions, electromagnetic constraints, are minimized. They resonate into a coherent periodic structure. Rapid cooling yields glass, a frozen dissonant snapshot. A heart beats via a coherent wave of electrical activation traveling through specialized tissue. Ventricular fibrillation is a state of lethal dissonance, competing wavelets causing cancellation and chaotic quivering. A defibrillator doesn't add energy to the heart muscle. It delivers a jolt that resets the phase of all cells simultaneously, wiping the slate clean so the natural pacemaker can re-establish a single, coherent rhythm. A conversation. Understanding emerges when mental models, words, and intent align. This alignment allows ideas to resonate and be amplified into shared meaning. Misunderstanding is dissonance. Signals cancel, meaning is lost, and the interaction dissipates into frustration, psychological entropy. At every scale, the pattern holds. Physical constraints define possible resonant pathways. Systems evolve toward these pathways because they are stable and efficient states. Coherence is the state of being locked into such a pathway. Dissonance is the state of being out of step, fighting the pathway. Entropy increase is the thermodynamic record of dissonance winning. of coherent energy being scattered into the thermal bath. This reveals the profound, counterintuitive relationship between coherence and entropy. 3. The deep twist. Coherence as the servant of entropy. We must abandon the idea that coherence fights entropy. Instead, see this. Coherent structures are often the most effective engines for producing entropy. A star is not an island of order, defying the cosmic trend. It is a gigantic entropy factory. It takes the profound potential energy of gravitational contraction and the deep nuclear potential of hydrogen, and via the exquisitely resonant pathway of thermonuclear fusion in its core, converts them into a flood of radiation. This radiation eventually disperses into the cold vastness of space, raising the universe's entropy unimaginably. The star's coherent, stable structure, its balance of gravity and pressure, is the precise furnace required to maximize this entropy production. The star exists because it is a supremely efficient way to produce entropy. A hurricane is not chaos. It is a coherent atmospheric engine. It forms specifically to dissipate the massive temperature gradient between warm ocean and cool upper atmosphere. Its organized spiral is the most effective mechanism to mix hot and cold air, driving the system toward uniform temperature, maximum entropy, as fast as possible. A living cell is the quintessential example. It is not a rebellion against decay. It is a coherent, self-maintaining chemical engine. It survives by consuming high-energy ordered molecules, food, and exporting low-energy waste and heat. It lives by locally organizing and accelerating the process of entropy export. Its beautiful, intricate structures, membranes, organelles, metabolic cycles, are the resonant pathways through which this necessary dissipation is channeled and regulated. In each case, the coherent structure is a flow-through pattern. It persists not by being static, but by being a stable process, a resonant channel through which a gradient of energy, concentration, temperature, information is dissipated. The coherence is the means, the entropy increase is the end. This reframes the second law. It is not a law against islands, it is a law about the sea. The sea level must rise globally, but that very rising can create currents that temporarily pile sand into magnificent, persistent shapes. The law governs the accounting, not the local architecture. 4. The Holophase tally, energy and action as bookkeeping. This brings us to a crucial refinement of language, essential for holophase thinking. In modern science, energy is often reified, spoken of as a substance that flows, is stored, and is consumed. We say a battery has energy, a motor uses energy. In our ontology, we must be more precise, for our language of phi demands it. In holophase, energy is not a substance, it is a tally. It is a bookkeeping entry derived from the pattern of phi. When we calculate the energy of a configuration, we are performing a specific mathematical operation on the field phi and its derivatives. For a simple wave system, the energy density might be proportional to phi over del t squared plus def squared. This is a tally. It adds up the squares of the rates of change in time and space. It is the score we keep for the amount of happening, or the capacity to induce change, based purely on the shape of the phase landscape. This shift is critical. It prevents the fallacy of thinking of energy as a magical fuel you pump into a machine to make it go. Instead, it makes us see using energy as rearranging the phi pattern from one configuration to another, such that our tally of change capacity associated with the desired coherent pattern increases, while the tally associated with the disordered thermal background increases even more. Let's translate a familiar statement. The laser uses electrical energy to produce coherent light. The pump mechanism establishes a phi derivative pattern in the lasing medium, population inversion, whose change capacity tally is high. This pattern relaxes via a resonant feedback loop, the cavity, transforming its tally into a new pattern, a coherent traveling phi modulation, the laser beam, while simultaneously increasing the tally associated with the randomized thermal motion of the atomic lattice, waste heat. The total tally is conserved, but its distribution has shifted. Energy conservation is just the conservation of this tally. The second law says that in this shuffling of the tally, the portion assigned to the randomized, useless configuration, the entropy, always grows. Coherent structures are configurations where a significant portion of the tally is temporarily held in a useful, readable form. This is why you cannot create coherence from nothing. You can only channel the flow of the tally from a disordered or differently ordered form into a resonant, persistent form, while paying the mandatory tax of increased disorder elsewhere. The energy is the currency of this exchange. Coherence is the valuable asset you purchase with it. V. The engineering imperative. Coherence constrained control. With this foundation, the entire philosophy of Episode 10 engineering comes into focus. Control is not the imposition of arbitrary will. It is the skillful creation and maintenance of resonant pathways. Consider the alternative: trying to force a pattern that is fundamentally dissonant with the system's natural modes. You can pump the tally into it, apply voltage, force, pressure, but that tally will not organize. It will excite a riot of conflicting modes, leading to destructive interference, heating, vibration, and instability. The pattern will shred itself. You are fighting the sea, and you will lose, expensively. True holophase engineering is the opposite. It is a dialogue with the system's own grammar. 1. Reading the grammar. Measurement. First, you must measure the existing phi field with humility. What are its current coherent clauses? What are its natural frequencies, omega, and spatial modes? Where is it already resonant? This tells you the system's language. 2. Designing the sentence. Programming. Your desired outcome must be phrased as a phi pattern that could resonate with the existing grammar. You design an intervention, a sentence, that aligns with or gently nudges the system toward a new, stable, resonant mode. This is the art of the phi programmer. 3. Speaking with alignment. Actuation. You apply your intervention not as a blunt force, but with precise phase alignment. Your actuators must speak in phase with the system, so your input constructs rather than destructs. This is where the compiler and adaptive controller earn their keep. 4. Maintaining the conversation. Feedback. Coherence is dynamic. Noise and dissipation constantly try to introduce dissonance. You must monitor the output phi, compare it to your goal, and make tiny, phase-correct adjustments. This is the iterative reality debugging loop, a continuous negotiation to keep the pattern locked in its resonant channel. This is why our roadmap places measurement and literacy first. You cannot align with what you cannot see. You cannot speak a language you cannot hear. The coherence gate before every action in Episode 10, the check that asks, is the local phi field readable and stable, is not red tape. It is the fundamental question of feasibility. Is the system in a state where a dialogue is possible, or am I about to scream into a hurricane? If coherence is too low, your control signal is just more noise. You must first act to increase coherence. Perhaps by cooling to reduce thermal noise, injecting a weak, broad pilot tone to establish a phase reference, or damping out turbulent modes. You prepare the window, then you paint inside it. Vive 6. The safety doctrine. Resonance is the double-edged sword. This law defines our paramount safety principle. The greatest danger in reality editing is not high energy. It is unintended resonance. Resonance is an amplifier. It cares not whether what it amplifies is beautiful or destructive. If your carefully designed intervention accidentally couples to a dissonant or chaotic mode of the system, resonance will amplify the chaos. It can create a positive feedback loop of instability. A small fluctuation grows, pulling more energy from your controls, growing further until the coherent structure you were building, or the substrate itself, is torn apart. This is not theoretical. It is how. Bridges collapse in winds that match their natural frequency, Tacoma narrows. Feedback screech destroys audio systems. Certain reactor designs can experience prompt critical runaway. Economic bubbles inflate and burst. Therefore, the core safety rule of phi engineering is: no intervention proceeds without first modeling its resonant interactions in a high-fidelity digital twin, our mesoscopic simulator. We must subject our designs to a phi wind tunnel. We throw our proposed pattern into a simulated ecology of other patterns and background noise. Does it settle peacefully? Does it resonate constructively with the environment? Or does it set off beating, destructive interference, or trigger a cascade of instability? We must witness how our sentence interacts with the entire paragraph of reality around it. This is coherence-constrained control. We are not wizards commanding the elements. We are master gardeners. We do not command the plant to grow. We study the soil, the phi landscape, provide aligned nutrients, phase-matched inputs, prune competing weeds, damp dissonant modes, and protect from frost, buffer against noise. The growth, the coherent living structure, emerges from the resonant collaboration between our care and the plant's own inherent nature. 7. The ethical and civilizational consequences. Finally, this physical law flows directly into our ethics and our vision for a phi civilization. If coherence is the condition for persistence, and persistence is a foundational aspect of being, then coherent patterns have a claim to moral consideration. A stable ecosystem is a complex, multi-scale coherent pattern in the chemical, biological, and climatic phi fields. To disrupt it recklessly is to dismantle a persistent island of relationships. A conscious mind, in the Holophase view, is hypothesized to be an exceptionally integrated, self-modeling coherent pattern in the neural phi field. To alter such a pattern without consent is not merely changing someone's mind, it is attacking the coherence that constitutes their very existence. Our phi ethics framework is therefore not arbitrary morality tacked onto physics. It is ethics derived from ontology. The precautionary principle, do not disrupt complex coherence without compelling reason and proof of safety, is a direct application of the physics of resonant stability. A mature phi civilization would internalize this in its very economics. Its currency would not just be money, but coherence budgets and action tallies. A major project, building a city, a starship, a planetary climate regulator, would be evaluated on coherence cost. How much stable phase space does it consume? Does it create or destroy coherent ecologies? Action tally. What is the total integrated amount of happening required to build and maintain it? We call this the action tally, a single number that sums up all the twisting and changing of the phase field across all of space and all of time for the entire project. In our language, it's written mathematically as the integral over volume and time of the square of the gradient of phi. Or, in symbols, integral of del phi squared dv dt. Del phi is the spatial gradient. It measures how sharply the phase field changes from point to point. Squaring it means we're counting the intensity of that change, not the direction. dv means we sum this intensity over every tiny volume of space the project touches. dt means we sum it over every moment, from construction through its entire lifetime to its decommissioning. In plain terms, a project that creates gentle, smooth phase patterns has a low action tally. A project that requires violent, rapid, or complex phase twists everywhere, forever, has a monstrously high action tally. A sustainable civilization minimizes this number. Our phi ethics framework is therefore not arbitrary morality tacked onto physics. It is ethics derived from ontology. The precautionary principle, do not disrupt complex coherence without compelling reason and proof of safety, is a direct application of the physics of resonant stability. A mature phi civilization would internalize this in its very economics. Its currency would not just be money, but coherence budgets and action tallies. A major project, building a city, a starship, a planetary climate regulator, would be evaluated on coherence cost. How much stable phase space does it consume? Does it create or destroy coherent ecologies? Action tally. What is the total integrated amount of happening, dVdt, required to build and maintain it? Entropy export. Where and how will the inevitable waste disorder be released? Is it safely managed, or does it create downstream dissonance? The most valued creations would be those that achieve high utility with maximal elegant stability and minimal entropic waste. The architectural equivalents of a standing wave or a superfluid vortex. Beautiful and persistent because they are perfectly resonant. Conclusion: the craft of island building. This, then, is the profound law we carry into the workshop. We do not fight the universe's tendency toward the sea of entropy. We learn to understand its currents, its tides, and the principles by which it allows islands to form. We learn to speak the language of phase alignment, and we listen, always, for the resonant reply. The sea is not our enemy. It is the medium, the infinite dynamic medium, in which we learn the sacred craft of building temporary, meaningful, and beautiful islands that can endure for their allotted time with grace and purpose. With this law etched into our understanding, the law of the island and the sea, we are now ready. We are ready to enter the workshop of episode 10. We are ready to learn the tools of measurement, the art of programming, and the profound responsibility of speaking and co-authoring reality itself. Salam, and peace be upon you.